Hi, everybody. Welcome to Here to Help You. Of course, I want to say this. I'm happy because outside is warm. I don't know if you guys have felt it. If you're not in Toronto, then you don't understand why it's exciting for me. But it's very exciting for me. And I'm also excited because I have a special guest. We have two special guests in today, actually. One you can see and one you cannot. So I'm going to big up my team first, who's here, and then we'll get to our special guest. So we have behind the scenes, of course, my engineer who does everything, make sure I look good, make sure we sound good. Mr. Jordan, thank you for being here. We have Chelsea, our intern, also here today. She'll be doing some live Instagram and Facebook from Dave Rankin's account. And of course, leads me to the one and only, the Don, my co-host, Dave Rankin.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on the show today.
You're lucky you're here, honestly.
Alongside the Donette, Simone, Jennifer Smith.
And would you like to do the introduction?
Yes. This is a gentleman that, although we spoke very briefly when we did have the chance to meet, and we met at the We Rise, the Peel Brampton
I remember.
School Board. Yes, initiative. That's right. Right. And although, it was a very small conversation that we had, he left me with something. Right. And I'd taken a look at his work and I said, you know what? We have to have this gentleman on this show.
That's true. He did say it a few times.
And you know what? I'm happy, the opportunity has presented itself. Ladies and gentlemen, Rainford Cornish.
Or to students, Mr. Cornish. Okay, don't forget. You forgot to tell where he came from. Okay, you got to make sure people know that.
Don't worry. I'm sure we'll get there in a moment.
Mr. Cornish, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. So I guess, we'll start by for those who don't know you.
Okay.
Tell people who you are. Who are you? Who's Mr. Cornish?
I'm Rainford Cornish. As the host rightly said, I'm a teacher here in Peel District School Board. In fact, I teach at the Central Peel Secondary School, just right up the road from here.
Oh, wow.
Okay, nice. Yes, I went online and I looked at some comments. You know how students can go and rate it?
Rate my teacher. Don't even go there.
So the consistent was he's hard. That was consistent across the board.
Oh, wow.
So I said, look, I'm going to be a teacher's pet and come ready. So I came with my book today. And I'm taking notes today. I'm going to do a lot less talking and a lot more listening because we have some great material to go through.
Yes.
And continue. What do you teach?
Well, I teach history. So Canadian history, world history.
Okay.
It was grade 12, grade 11,
okay,
and grade 10 history.
All right. Okay. So, Dave, I know you have questions for the gentleman. So I'm taking notes today.
The impressionable years, yes. Yeah, grade 10, 11, 12. I remember those years.
That's right. That's me.
Yes.
So now, history-wise, let's go from the genesis. So now, what prompts you to go ahead and begin your journey now as wanting to go ahead and teach history? And not just, of course, world history, but of course, African history as well. Well, African Canadian history as well, right? Mm-hmm. So where did all that begin?
Well, once I wrote a piece called Finding My Voice. Mm-hmm. I was in my third year of York University, and they had this visiting PhD student giving a lecture talking about Confederation and the founding nations at Confederation. Mm. And he mentioned the English, the French, the Aboriginals, and a few other ethnic groups, and no mention of black people. And I knew there were black people in Canada at Confederation.
Yes.
And so I interrupted his lecture and I said, what about the blacks? He said, well, the number of blacks in Canada were so negligible. That was his word.
Oh, wow.
Negligible that he did not even bother to list them.
Oh, boy.
And that floored me. It's like, the numbers are so negligible. In other words, by one sweep of his brush, he has swept under the floor the history, over 400 years of history of black people in this nation.
That's crazy.
Jeez. Wow.
And so that began the genesis of my research as to see, how long have been black? How long have blacks been living in Canada? Mm-hmm. And so from my research, I found out, hey, we've been living here for over 400 years. Mm-hmm. With the first recorded mention of a black person in Canada, Matthew de Costa.
Yes.
Who came to Canada roughly 1604, 1605.
Okay.
Depending on the sources you're
reading.
Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. And they're saying that Mr. de Costa now, and we do have a picture. You might throw in that first one so we get that for our viewers, right? Mr. de Costa, He was used as a guide. Is that right?
Watch the pimp hat.
There we go.
Pimp hat is strong.
Now, please understand that that's just an artist's impression of what he looks like.
Of course,
that
yes.
I borrowed from a source. Okay? Your question was, what was his role?
Yes, what was his role?
Well, he was an interpreter between the French and the Mi'kmaq Indians.
Okay.
He came over with Samuel de Champlain.
Okay.
And Pierre de Gardemont. Now, this guy from North Africa, he spoke Mi'kmaq, he spoke French, and of course spoke a Northern African language. And the fact that he was an interpreter between the French and the Mi'kmaq kind of begs the question: would he have come to Canada earlier to have learned the Mi'kmaq language?
Right.
Yeah.
Because, as a tribe, of course, they don't just allow anybody to come in.
Exactly.
But he'd have to be around long enough
to have learned the language.
Beautiful.
But of course, his popularity grew when he came with Pierre de Gardemont and Samuel de Champlain, roughly 1604.
I heard that was it the English and as well as the French at one point in time they were fighting for his services? Is that correct?
Yes. But of course, he stuck with the French.
Stuck with the French. I see. Okay, so I know we have a list of definitely of figures, prominent figures that we wanted to go through.
Right.
But before we do so, I understand we brought some materials. Now you have some materials here. We had a chance to speak briefly outside in regards to what you have brought with you today.
Yes.
But I want everybody out there to know exactly
what we do.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, as I said, the genesis of my work began when I was in university. So I started researching and writing about the African Canadian history. So if we were to hold this up, you can see.
I can do that for you.
Would you please?
That's
Thank
my
you.
job.
That's it. Okay. So I've titled that Lessons from the Past, the African Canadian journey from slavery to freedom. So it's really documenting the history of black people from the first recorded mention of a black person in Canada up to the current time. So for Matthew de Costa, and what it does, it looks at slavery in Canada. Okay. It looks at black settlements right across Canada. Okay. Because there were some predominant black settlements in Ontario, in Ontario, British Columbia, in Alberta. Okay. And of course in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia, yes.
It looks at the black church, the role of the black church. It also examines the black immigrant experience, our experiences in the army, in the military, and the racism they face, etc.
Oh, wow.
So it's a broad sweep of Canadian history.
Excellent. And something like that now, how long is this an ongoing? Is this complete yet? Is it ongoing? I mean, how long has this research been taking so far?
It's an ongoing piece of work. It's as you see here, it's not done. I think I've done. I still have 2 chapters left to be written. Okay. And once it's done, of course, I'm going to publish it. Wonderful. So for those of you who are watching, look out for my book. The working title, of course, as it says, Lessons from the Past, The African Canadian Journey to Freedom. That's the working title for now.
I like it.
Thank you.
So this is going to be another book in our monstrous library. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I mean, I've read, one of the books that I've read was Blacks in Deep Snow, which showed, of course, the migration coming in, of course, especially the harsh winterous times, right? Yes. And then experiencing, of course, what a Canadian winter was like as well, right? Outside of that, by all means, let's go into your other work that you have brought with you
the other
today.
thing I brought in, yes, thank you, is it's called the Black Presence in Canada, part of the Black Presence Project that I have put together. Wonderful. Now, these are really PowerPoints presentations that I've done in various community groups and churches and social, communities, churches, schools. So Black History Month is really busy for me.
I can understand.
I've gone to a number of schools already this month, and I'll be going to a couple more in Mississauga, as well as a community group next week, Thursday evening. So these are various presentations, and if you flip through the pages, you can see one of the first ones in here is it says a Black Presence in Canada, early years. Talks about immigration later on in here. It talks about women of action. So African Canadian women and what they've done, the contributions to nation building
Yes.
over the years.
Oh, that's amazing.
And other
Mary
topics.
Bibb, Rosemary
Yeah,
Brown.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially, you know what? I don't think there's a highly emphasis. It's been highly emphasized in regards to, of course, the role in nation building
No.
that women have played.
Right.
Right. So I mean, it's important definitely to go ahead and have that as a message out there as well. And I definitely remember receiving that this.
The CD,
Yes,
the
I
CD
remember
version
that.
of everything that's part of my research. It can be available as well in a CD version.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay. Let's come back because I want to hear more.
By
But
means,
I don't
go
want to
ahead.
interrupt him. So when we come back, more with Mr. Cornish. Hope you teachers your students are watching. Test next week.
Thank you.
We are doing this event for the community. But what if CEO actually stood for catching every opportunity? This week alone, I've seen 3 businesses that shut their doors in this community.
Investing in yourself, like you have to know what your brand is first. So there's no other way that you're going to build a brand unless you network. You have to eventually get out there.
And it stems down to a lot of times not having the right knowledge, the right know-how.
So if you're just joining us now, we are right in the middle of history class. We have the honored Mr. Cornish here. You like that, eh? Trust me.
Really?
The adjectives are going to get better. You don't worry. I came to impress you today. Trust me. And we're talking about the black presence in Canada and
Yes.
what many of us don't even know about it.
Yes.
And the fact that, I don't know, are there any other teachers like you teaching this type of stuff in Ontario?
Yes, there are. There are. As a matter of fact, I am also part of a writing team that's developing some resources right now for the grade 10 curriculum for the Peel District School Board
Wonderful.
as part of the We Rise initiative.
Wonderful.
So, and our 3rd writing session is tomorrow.
Okay.
So, yes, and there are teachers, not just, people like me, but there are a number of other teachers from other ethnicities who have a vested interest in getting the message out there of the African Canadians and the one contribution to nation building. So, yes.
Beautiful. How have I know I probably can't divulge too little bit too much, but it's still
okay.
How has the working relationship been with other teachers, everybody else from different backgrounds, especially with this initiative? Right? Because I know, it can be challenging, definitely.
Yes.
Right? And of course, people are people. We all have our own ideals. But for yourself, how has the experience been so far?
The team that I'm working with is great because these are people who actually have an interest in seeing this resource develop.
Okay.
So the dynamics on that team right now is really great, and they see the need that this story needs to be told.
Right.
And so we have a great working relationship.
Beautiful.
Beyond that, however, there are others who are quite a little bit resistant to having that because it's Canadian history. So, but the good thing is, Peel District School Board, as part of their We Rise initiative, recognized that black boys in the region are failing, and so part of the reason they're failing is they don't see themselves reflected. They don't see themselves reflected in the curriculum, in the classroom, in the teaching staff, etc. And so the board has now said, okay, done a study on that, and have put together this initiative and put together some programs to ameliorate the conditions of black boys in the region.
That's wonderful. definitely wonderful. And I know, you know what, we brought you up here, of course, for you to go and, you know, divulge some of your expertise on your research. So let's...
Your specialties.
Yeah.
There's another adjective there.
So,
the floor is yours.
let me know what you want me to speak about. I'll
Yes.
grab that resource over here.
Of
Yes,
course,
no
of
problem.
course.
The floor is yours, my
I
friend.
know you have pictures, Dave. So I'm sitting in class. I'm not asking you anything today. Today's Simone's day off.
So
Okay.
can we go to
Let me do
picture
this.
number 2?
Aha.
Yes, that should be the Maroons. Yes.
Oh,
story
the
of
Maroons.
Yes.
Oh,
J-A,
look at that. Look
J-A.
at that. How many people recognize that Jamaican Maroons actually, there were some Jamaican Maroons who actually came to Canada
A long time ago.
a long time ago, it's
For real?
around 1796.
Okay.
They were, you know, these guys, okay, let me go backtrack. The Maroons are descendants of African slaves Africans who were brought to Jamaica by the Spanish. You know, the Spanish conquered Jamaica
Right.
in 1655. First, the Spanish conquered Jamaica when Christopher Columbus came in 1492.
Okay.
Then they fought with the British. The British took over in 1655.
Right.
So the Maroons were the escaped slaves, and they moved to the interior of the country.
Okay.
And so these people were very worrisome for the British
You're right.
because they were encouraging other slaves to escape and come to the community and live with them. So what the governor did in 1796, Governor Barcaris,
Okay.
the British governor, he rounded up some of these Maroons, about 600 of them, and shipped them off to Nova Scotia.
Oh boy.
Can you imagine leaving Jamaica and
So
coming to Nova Scotia?
So he did what Castro did.
So,
Let's just get rid of that.
yes, that's it. He sent them over to Nova Scotia. But, you know, Maroon Jamaicans and black people on the whole, being as resourceful as they are,
Right.
They were involved in nation building. They didn't just, you know, lament their condition.
Right.
But they were involved in building the Citadel in Nova Scotia
Okay.
and other major projects in the city of Halifax. Around 1800, a number of them, I think about 500 or so of them, immigrated to Sierra Leone.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So they went back home.
They went back home. Yes. They went back home.
Beautiful.
So-
We go to number 3. What's the title? What we got the title of this under? There we go. The Loyalists.
The Black
Loyalists.
Loyalists.
Yes. They have a wonderful story.
They actually do. Because, again, you know the American Revolution occurred when? Remember? Okay, we were in school, you said we were in class. 1776.
76. Yes.
learning today.
I'm thinking of the War of 1812.
Well, if you're into it, not there yet. But here's a good thing. Here's the thing about this story. Many of these slaves who were living in America, okay, did not want to remain in America.
Okay.
They were loyal to the British crown.
That's right.
They wanted to remain a British subject. So what they did, many of them escaped to Canada with their masters, who also were loyal to the British.
Oh wow.
So when we hear about the loyalists, we think about the white masters and the white folks who came to Canada. No, there were a number of blacks who also came to Canada.
I know we're getting a little static
Who came?
feedback.
Yes.
Don't worry. We'll keep working with it.
The-
Okay,
No worries.
fantastic.
No worries.
Fantastic, thank you. Sorry.
No worries.
So there were also a number of blacks who came to Canada as free men because they wanted to remain loyal to the British.
That's awesome. I believe that's highlighted in Book of Negroes, I believe.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Is that now when you go into like of course these various of course people in various times of course years and of course their contributions, what are the students' reaction? Especially when now they're hearing something, of course, the Black Loyalist now, right? And they're hearing, of course, I'm sure you teach a lot of Jamaicans in the school, right? So by means, of course, when they hear about the Maroons now, we're having a significant, contribution to Canadian history. What's their feelings like when they hear something like this?
Well, first of all, it's an incredulous feeling because first of all, it's an aha moment. I didn't know this, sir.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow,
Yeah.
Jamaican? I mean, Maroons in 1796 sent to Canada? Nobody knew that. So it instills a sense of pride in them to know that, people of their heritage, from their background, were involved in nation building. And that, not only that, I don't think you have this image, but if I were to piggyback on that, to tell you that even when I tell the story, this is true, of Canada's first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, he was married to a Jamaican woman.
I knew that. I knew that.
You knew that?
I knew that. Dave taught me that. He
yes.
taught me that. He's a Jamaican woman.
I don't think I have the image, but her name was Susan Agnes Bernard.
Susan Agnes Bernard.
And her family owned the Bernard Lodge Sugar Estate, which is still in operation in Jamaica to this day.
Oh, wow.
She's British, of course. But she met John A. McDonald. John A. McDonald met her first around 1856 in London. And in 1867, on another trip, he proposed, she got married and came back to Canada.
Oh, wow.
See, Johnny McDonald,
She was born in Jamaica, August 24, 1836.
Uh-oh. Oh, boy.
Near Spanish Town, Jamaica.
Spanish Town. So John A. McDonald did something very smart.
There you go.
Very wise. I like him now. What bill is he on? What bill is he on again?
He's on the $10 bill.
The $10 bill.
All right, there we go.
The $10 bill. Not for long, though, because
next year. Is it next year?
Next year.
That's right.
Actually, it's later on this year, 2018.
That's right.
That image is going to be changed to, guess who?
Viola
Desmond.
That's right.
That's right, an African Canadian woman.
It's lovely. Sorry, John. I still like you better, though. Technically, you married one of my own, so I must say.
Okay, I'm not sure who else.
Oh, keep going. Dave has this all. I'm learning today. I told you, not talking, just learning.
Now, of course, one quick question before we do go to break, and just to piggyback off, of course, the intermarriage at that point in time.
Yes.
Now, with him being a prime minister, right, and then through your research, now, of course, him taking up, of course, a Jamaican woman, right? What do you think of some of the backlash, if there was any backlash at that point in time, right? From cabinet members and just the public and so on and so forth.
Well, understand that there wasn't any backlash as far as I know from my research.
Okay.
Because she's white, she's British. Her family owned the plantation, so they owned slaves in Jamaica.
Okay.
But the fact that she's born in Jamaican soil, she's a Jamaican.
She's Jamaican.
Yes.
And what Jamaica's motto is, out of many, one people.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter what color you are, we're all Jamaicans together.
There we go.
Okay, so she was born in Jamaica and we're going to claim her.
There we go.
Thank you, John A. McDonald, again, for your contribution to the Jamaican history. When we come back, we're going to learn a little bit more with Mr. Cornish.
Thank you.
This is my first year here, and I was so excited. I've had so many people come, so much traffic. I'm absolutely tired.
Because of all the exposure that I got from this great event, I was able to grow and evolve and create my very own label.
It's been a fantastic event.
This is my second year.
This is a great and awesome event connecting to the community.
So yeah, we urge you to join. Here's a great turnout.
So for those of you who are not here this year and have business, make sure that you're here next year because it's only going to get better every year.
So I will be back next year. So thank you. This is so awesome.
So people who aren't here, what would you tell them?
You're missing out. Come out and have some fun.
Welcome back, guys. I wish you could have seen just like the papers and everywhere. He's such a teacher. I would like to welcome everyone to history class today. So if you're just joining this, like this is actually really cool. I've been very quiet today, but it's because we have a teacher. We have a formidable. You like that one, don't you?
Is he really talking about me?
I got another one out.
I like that. All right.
We have Mr. Cornish here today, and he's going through some things with us that, you know what, some of us may know. I'm guessing most of us don't know, which is why it's wonderful to hear. You've missed us talking about the Maroons. You missed us talking about John A. McDonald's Jamaican wife. That's right. You heard it here first. And now we're going to continue on our journey through our history to hear about a cowboy, I hear. What's this man's name?
John Weir.
John Weir, the original gangster.
Can we go ahead and put up that image of him real quick?
What?
Well, there's John Weir and his wife. That's his wife, Mildred, and his daughter. Now, John Weir was a slave.
Okay.
Okay. So after slavery was abolished, he moved to Canada.
Okay.
He moved to Alberta.
Of all places.
Of all places. He moved to Alberta, of all places. So, and he got involved with the Calgary Stampede.
That's right.
That's right. This guy was huge. He was massive, 230-pound hunk of black
African,
yes. Java, if you will.
Yeah.
And very muscular, but a very gentle soul. Okay? But he was so good at breaking in horses that he attracted the attention of the range of the farmers on the prairies at the time.
Okay.
Okay. And so around he came around 1885, roughly at that time, to Canada. Okay. And he was involved, as I said, in breaking in horses, in helping to round up horses and cattle. He, along with other cowboys, led a number of herds of cattle back down in America.
Oh, wow.
So he did several trips back and forth between Canada and America.
Wow.
And America, okay? And he was, when they had a horse that they had to break in that nobody else wanted to touch,
right?
They would call on John Weir to break those horses.
Amazing.
Okay? As I said, and he didn't know much English as growing up as a slave, but in his indomitable style, he picked up what he could from the masters, taught himself how to read and write.
Wow.
As well. And so once he got to Canada, he got involved, as I said, with the farm and with the ranch. And in addition to that, good story. For those of you who like pet, he had a trust. I don't know if you have that image. He had a trusted dog with him always.
You didn't get no image of no dog there.
Oh man! I know. Everywhere he went, his dog went with him.
The dog of dogs.
The dog of dogs.
Yeah. But he actually suffered a tragic end, though.
The doggy?
No, not him.
Oh,
John Weir.
John Weir.
On one of his trips, his horse stepped in one of the badger's hole.
Okay.
Flipped over and fell on him. Got pinned under.
Oh no.
And
crushed it.
But when they found him, his dog was right by his side.
Didn't leave him.
Didn't leave him.
Oh wow.
So that's John Weir's story.
I like John Weir.
In Alberta right now, if you go out there, there's a John Weir cabin in his honor. There's schools named after him. There are parks named after him.
That's beautiful.
It's a big figure out in Alberta.
That's beautiful. I mean, now, especially something like this now, of course, the prairie life, right, which is something totally different, of course, from now. Look at Southern Ontario.
Yes.
You're right. We're looking, of course, the Don settlement with John Henson, right?
Yes.
Now, do you go into the type of explaining some of the conditions that they would have faced early as being early settlers, being in Alberta? Like, we know winter, right? How did they deal with winter? Especially considering that, John Weir, where was he located at slavery now? Was it Midwest? Right. In the Americas? Was he stationed in the Midwest?
He came up from 200-pound frontier. He came up from the Midwest. That's why he ended up in the prairie.
In the prairies. Okay, so there's some familiarity in regards to the lifestyle.
The lifestyle at that time.
Right.
But you were asking how they cope with it.
How did they actually cope with winter for one thing, right? And beside the farmers now. At that point in time in prairie land, we are looking, of course, some native settlements as well. So what was now their relationship now, of course, to the response to native people as well?
As a matter of fact, I read one source that said he had a good working relationship with the native.
Okay.
On the prairies. Because he befriended them. As I said, he was a gentle giant. So he befriended those natives around, with whom he interacted. Okay? And at that time, however, his biggest concern was how to construct a house.
Wow.
Because homes were made out of logs,
Yeah.
mud, and so everything had to be done by hand.
Yeah.
And the first home he built, guess what happened? He built it in an area that was flooded. It's washed away.
Oh boy.
Was washed
Wow.
away. And so he learned from that and built his next home a little bit higher
How
up.
vexed was his wife?
Oh, of course.
I'd be so
You need to
cheesed.
answer that one.
I'd be so cheesed.
Yeah.
I'd be cussing him too. Like, are you serious? You mean you couldn't build on something strong?
Ah.
I'd be going off, so I understand.
It's a trial and error experience. I'm trying to know.
Don't trial and error when I'm cold. You better just trial, get it together.
You're killing me. but one of the things though, you're talking about not only him but other blacks in the area. They did face some racism though.
Okay.
From the Caucasian settlers
Yes.
out there. In fact, if you look in the blacks who wanted to come over from into Amber Valley, okay, Alberta.
Alberta, yes.
In fact, in 1909, there was a group of blacks that wanted to immigrate to Canada from Oklahoma, and they were discouraged from coming.
Oh boy.
Because the idea is nobody would want to associate with them. So the Canadian government sent representatives down to Oklahoma to persuade them not to immigrate to Alberta.
Oh, wow.
Amber Valley. And their story is documented in a book called Deemed Unsuitable.
Okay.
The gentleman's his last name is Shepherd. I forget his first name.
Okay.
Deemed Unsuitable.
Okay.
But they were not welcomed. And listen to this. Even though they were not welcome in Alberta at the time, it was that same year in 1909 that a gentleman by the name of Matthew Henson went to the North Pole.
Why?
With another gentleman whose name was Matthew Perry. Went to the North Pole in 1909.
Wow.
And he, Matthew Henson, a black man, even though he went to the North Pole with this white explorer, did not get the recognition. He
Because you shouldn't have gone to the North Pole. What the heck do you want recognition for? Who told you to go to the North Pole?
I know.
For what? What's up there for us?
Well, because, I mean, you know, he was used to traveling up to the north before.
No recognition, Henson. Still don't get none here. Sorry.
But the good thing about that story is, from my research, if you go up to Greenland today, there are still descendants because he had children.
He had children.
With original settlers up in Greenland. There are descendants living in Greenland today.
Will carry the name.
Yes.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. Who would have thought, right? In all places, you can pretty much find one of us there, right?
Oh.
That was very silly. Very silly.
Look, I used to, my first teaching job, real teaching job in Canada was in the north. On an Aboriginal reserve, First Nation reserve, Sandy Lake First Nation.
Wow.
Okay.
And so I was in this neighborhood. And my family at the time, you know, there were not many people looking like me up there. And I left there, went up further north to Fort Severn. That's right up on the Hudson Bay.
Oh, wow.
Are you related to Henson?
I'm not,
Are
but
you sure?
I needed a job.
You guys are making certain decisions that sound very similar, okay? Both you guys are heading north.
I went to the north.
Right.
And it was a great learning experience, though, to work amongst Aboriginals.
Right.
And to be the one of a kind in the community, to the extent that kids would come up to me and touch my skin to say if I'm real.
Because black people should be They were just curious, like, why is he here?
I know.
Shouldn't you be someplace warm like Jamaica?
Well.
Just saying.
Well, you know, Jamaicans, we're adventurous, so we travel all across.
Not north. Okay, that's just you. That's
West
just
Indians
you,
on a whole. West Indians on a whole. Not just Jamaicans. To be fair. Not just Jamaicans. West Indians on a whole, we like to travel right across.
That is true.
When we come back, I'll continue to pick on the descendants of Mr. Henson. We'll be right back. So the two historians, I get to say it. There's someone they don't know about, and I should say the name. I don't know, but I never claimed to be history buff. I'm just learning. Just joking. Hi guys, welcome back to Here to Help You. I'm here troubling. If I was a student, I would be in so much trouble right now. But I was that student who would antagonize my teachers. So just going living my role here. We have Mr. Mr. Cornish here today, and he's sharing our history with us. And I think it's awesome because we don't hear a lot. I've learned a lot today. I learned about. Hold on, we're gonna go through the names of people we've talked about today. Just so again, if you want to look back at the video, which I would suggest, just of course. This is a good one for teachers, too. Some teachers who have no... Oh, I need to tell you this, Mr. Cornish. Can I tell you what one of the teachers suggested for students to do for Black History Month in Toronto?
Sure.
They wanted their students to dress up like slaves and walk down... Westview Collegiate.
Are you serious?
They want their students to dress up like slaves and walk down the hall and sing slave songs and talk about slavery to students in the hall. Westview.
Why don't we have a role reversal? They dress up like the slaves.
Westview.
Well, I let the kids be the slave masters. That's what it feels like for a moment.
You heard that here first. I'm here to... We're all in trouble.
I can't believe that. Are you serious?
No, honestly, it's what they suggested.
Yeah.
They have done nothing for Black History Month yet, and the month is nearly done.
Wow.
So this is very important. I'm going to send this to the principal. So that he can see what needs to be done in the schools. This is the type of history that people need to be hearing.
Nothing for Black History
Month. For Black History Month.
Yeah.
Dress up like slaves and walk in hallway.
Today we had Ballet Creole coming in and do a dance piece for us at school and just teaching the students about African drumming and African dance.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, Dave and I are going to schools to talk about masks, what masks mean. Like these are the type of presentations we're going past. Slavery.
Right.
We're going back into history of us.
Yeah.
You know,
talk about the quilt and what the quilt meant for African Americans who were escaping from slavery to freedom.
This is why shows like this and Sir, why you are so important, because we don't, some of us, you know what it is? Straight up, it's not everyone's as passionate as you about being African. You have to understand that. And I've learned that here.
Right.
We're not all as passionate. So you have to legitimately spoon feed them like children with this type of information because not everyone's there, right? So, and
I appreciate this opportunity because look, this is all I can be.
For real.
Yeah.
A Black man.
Yeah.
You know, and I just doesn't matter what I do, I can't change my complexion.
Well,
this
you
is
can.
who I am. Well, of course you can, but it's not permanent.
You can't change.
Oh my
you know,
gosh, you're funny. But you know, this is all I know. This is my history.
Yeah.
You know, look, I'm not sure who we're going to do next, but a quick anecdote.
Go right ahead.
When I was in Teachers College, my teachers training was in Jamaica.
Okay.
And we did a lot of courses, European history. We were doing Caribbean history and so forth. And of course, you know, Caribbean history back then is really British history.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Because we learn about Francis Drake and all those British names. Nobody taught us about, you know, the African, the Jamaicans, the slaves who rebelled against all of that and fought for their freedom.
Yes.
And so I remember my teacher saying to me at the time, saying to us, we're going to do a section, a unit on African history. Wow. This is talking about the mid-1980s.
Okay.
And I mean, you know, being indoctrinated in the British system, I asked the teacher, I'm not kidding you, why are we doing African history? Isn't Africa the dark continent?
Wow. Yeah.
But she was wise enough not to answer the question directly. She said, I'm not going to answer that question. When we get to that unit, you will see why we need to study African history. And so, and I was amazed because as part of my research, and I think one of the chapters in my book, we learned about African kingdoms that existed. Dahomey, Songhay, Mali, Ghana.
Yes.
And the great African kings, Akhenaten, King Tut. And don't get me started on King Tut because they westernized King Tut so much to make him appear as if he has this straight nose and he's Black African.
Didn't they just do that to Nefertiti too?
They did the same thing to Nefertiti.
Really?
They're Africans.
Yeah.
Okay? So this is all I know. This is all I can be. A Black man and who's passionate about his history and who is confident in my skin. So when I talk about to students about finding myself, it's about telling my story and telling it in such a way not to make others feel uncomfortable. Well, sometimes they need to feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because the truth makes you feel uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. Yes.
Okay? The truth will make you feel uncomfortable. But we need to tell it because for 364 days of the year, we're learning somebody else's history. Who's telling our history?
Yeah.
If we don't tell it, who's going to do it for us?
Very true.
That's right.
Very true. Who's your favorite person to research? Out of all the people that, if I'm going to say that right now, I pretty much put you on the spot, like I said, like naming one, but by means, if who'd be, say, the most interesting person that you found over the years regarding all your research, regarding our history, right? Who's your favorite? Who's up there with you?
Wow. That's a lot of names that come to mind now.
By means, throw them all out.
Well, I love John Weir.
Okay.
Because he was an anomaly. To be a black cowboy in the 1800s, that's unheard of.
Yes.
So I love his story. I love Matthew da Costa because he came with the French for sure, but he was key to the French expedition to in 1604.
Right.
And not only that, from my research, I also found that when they were laying out the foundations for Quebec City, which is Canada's oldest city, he was there at some of the meetings.
Wow.
When they were discussing the laying out of the foundations of Quebec City.
Okay.
So this guy is instrumental in nation building.
That's awesome.
Okay. And I liked Marianne Shadd.
Okay.
Marianne Shadd.
We have her.
Okay. We have her up there.
Yeah, we have Marianne Shadd.
Should be the last picture.
Shadd. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Marianne Shadd Carey, she would later on marry name Carey. She was a newspaper publisher. She was an editor. She was a lawyer. She was a teacher. Okay, she published the Provincial Freeman, which is this newspaper, which was a rival of another newspaper called Voice of the Fugitive, which was published by Henry Bibb.
Henry Bibb, yes.
All right.
Yes.
It was published by Henry Bibb, and she published the Provincial Freeman. Okay, and of course the newspaper was used to speak out against anti-slavery, and of course to tell of the exploits of blacks in Canada and so forth. But again, the fact that why I like her so much, not only did she fight against slavery, but she didn't let the obstacles that stood in her way stop her.
Okay.
She opened a school in Buxton for, and at the time when it was unpopular to have integrated schools.
Oh, wow.
Because segregation was legal in Ontario.
Was legal, yes.
And her school was integrated.
Wow.
Okay. Again, later on, not only, as I said, not only was she a teacher, but she moved to the United States, moved back to the USA, and she earned her degree in law. She became a lawyer herself. And so I find her story is intriguing as well.
Yes. And just want to big up, because I always do, Windsor in the house again, because that's where she lived in Ontario.
That's right.
I knew that. That's...
Need a pat on your shoulder for
what?
that.
Am I getting A? I'm getting an A today, boy.
Good job.
So, you know what? I'm very happy that you were able to come today. We definitely need, I wish we'd gotten him earlier, to be honest with you, because this is good. We need more of this. I heard you mention earlier, if anyone gets to watch Trisha's video, that we do need, even in our newspapers, a lot more writing about our history.
Yes.
We need to hear more of it. Like having that, this is good, but having that constantly. I've always said we cannot celebrate our history in a month. It's impossible because we've been here for so long. It would take generations to talk about our history.
That's right.
So if we could at least get into people's faces daily, that would be nice, right? Like Dave always says, we sometimes are so worried about inclusion. Sometimes we need to just do things ourselves without waiting for someone to give us the okay to do it. Like, Marianne Shadd's a great example. She just said, bun this. She didn't say bun this because she's not Jamaican. But if she was, she would have said, bun this. I'm going to start my
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
We have to take charge of our own history.
That's right.
Take charge of our history instead of letting it being said to us. So I want to thank you very much for joining us here and Here to Help You. We will have you back We will
Thank
have
you.
you back.
Certainly a pleasure.
We want to thank all of you. Of course, if you have any questions at all, please put them in the comments below. We will get you the answers. We have the source here. The remarkable, amazing, impeccable. Give me a word, Dave. Give me an adjective. Quick. No?
Knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable, insightful, Mr.
Oh,
Cornish.
you're too kind. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It's
No
been a
problem.
pleasure.
Thanking you. You guys have a
sharing
wonderful
today.
day. Dave, you want to say anything to anybody before we leave out?
Once again, I mean, our history is rich, right? And sometimes we just need just one person just to do it, right? I hope that whatever was said today will be able to go in and spark just a tiny spark, right? In people who've been unaware of our contribution, right? And allow them to go in here, right, and do a little bit more research so that way they can begin to, of course, scratch, of course, the topsoil and really go into the meat and potatoes of everything.
That's all you get.
And understand that we've been in this country for over 400 years.
There we go.
We're nation builders.
That's right.
As well.
That's
Jamaicans first. Okay, I'll see everybody later.
Peace and love, family.
Okay, folks. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much,
Thank
family.
you.